Hello, everyone, and welcome to a webinar hosted by the CSCC Cloud Customer Architecture for Big Data and Analytics, now version 2.0. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Tracy Berardi, Program Manager of the Cloud Council. And I'm very happy to be joined by Christine Ouyang, Distinguished Engineer and Master Inventor at IBM, who's been working on big data analytics and hybrid cloud infrastructures. Unfortunately, Heather Krieger couldn't join us today, but Christine and I will take you through our updated reference architecture. So just this week, the Cloud Standards Customer Council announced two deliverables. Version 2.0 of the Big Data and Analytics Cloud Reference Architecture is now available, as well as a new companion guide titled Hybrid Cloud Considerations for Big Data and Analytics. So both papers are published on our website at cloud-council.org. You can also find direct links to the papers here in the Bright Talk Attachments tab, so feel free to take those with you. Christine is going to walk us through V2 of the BDA architecture, and we'll discuss the elements and components that are needed to launch BDA solutions using cloud computing. And this Friday, August 11th, at 11 a.m. Eastern, we're hosting a second webinar to dive deeper into hybrid cloud computing considerations. And that's based on this second paper here that you see, Hybrid Cloud Considerations for BDA. So you're very welcome to tune in on Friday if you could join us. The CSCC, as you likely know if you've been joining us for recent webinar presentations, we've been working on this series of cloud reference architectures that illustrate how to implement particular application solutions using cloud infrastructure. So on this slide, we've included links to our white papers that describe how to leverage cloud computing for technologies like e-commerce, mobile applications, the Internet of Things, API management, blockchain, and others. And these reference architectures are straightforward descriptions of elements that are needed to implement application solutions using cloud infrastructure, cloud platforms, cloud software, and cloud services. And they're deployment neutral, using public, private, or hybrid cloud environments. And they're meant to be implemented using infrastructure, platform, or software as a service. And the target audience for these papers are those who are planning to build or purchase cloud-based applications. So I'm going to go ahead and hand over the presentation to Christine, who was one of the lead contributors to this paper. Of course, we'll have some time for Q&A also at the end of the presentation. So feel free to submit your questions in the Questions tab, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. And Christine, it's over to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tracy. Hello, everyone. This is Christine Ouyang from IBM. First of all, I'd like to thank CICC for hosting this webinar. It's been a great collaboration between IBMers and also the CICC members. So let me just provide some background before I dive into the cloud architecture for big data and analytics. This one is just a simple definition of analytics. Right. So as we all know, analytics is a discovery, interpretation, and communication of meaningful patterns in data. And then it's very valuable in areas where the information are recorded, and it's very rich, and this is why we call it big data. And then analytics really relies on simultaneous application of statistics, data science, operation research to gain insights, right? So the different kind of mathematical modeling, data mining, optimization, computer programming, they all come together to really carry this analytics task. Okay. Next page. Let me just go forward. Tracy, okay. Now, yeah, okay, good.
There you go.
So now this chart basically explains what the 4 IT domains are. Back in 2014, IBM Research published a global technology outlook, and we defined system of insight together with system of records and system of engagement. And in 2015, Forrester further specified system of automation for interacting with machines, especially for IoT use cases, right? So as you can see, the system of records really hosts the process, and they are meant for supporting the business transactions, right? And the system of engagement is really for interacting with human beings, customer engagement, those kind of activities, right? And the system of automation, as I explained, it's mainly interacting with machines, sensors, devices, right? And then a system of insight sits in the middle for a reason. It really combines all the data, from different systems and generate insight, right? So many people think system of insight is the next generation of business intelligence and will power the digital business. So this is the system of insight is the focus of our talk today. Okay, next page, moving forward. Okay, so this is a busy chart, but I will walk you through it. Basically, all the data sources are on the left-hand side. So as you see, there's traditional system of record type of data, and then there's also emerging, such as system of engagement, the social media, right, mobile apps, web, application, the data from web application, and then also you have data from sensors, devices, right? So those are the system of automation data, right? And then on the right-hand side, there are the business imperatives that are powered by the actionable insight generated from the system of insight, okay? In the middle, which looks like a wheel, this is the system of insight, and the data actually is feeding the idea is that by feeding the data and turning the wheel, you will get the insight from the from the other hand, right? So that's just the how the visual came about. So in the center of this wheel is the data lake with all kinds of data. The top is the real-time data and analytics, and the bottom is more of a batch processing. And as you can see, there are all kinds of data, right? Data warehouses, traditional data warehouse data, and then you also have data from deep analytics, right? For deep analytics as well, right? And then you also have the cognitive knowledge. So these are, the emerging knowledge graph that will be generating, right? And it also sits in the data lake. The inner ring is the infrastructure, such as on-prem, cloud, and hybrid environment with integrated security. And also we have information governance, which is very important. Okay? And then the third one is the self-service axis, which I will explain in the next chart. The outer ring is the different types of analytics. So we have descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and cognitive. See, the cognitive is at the bottom. Really, it's powered by machine learning, and also the natural language processing, right? So basically, it will provide information such as what did I learn from this experience, right? And then what is my next transformation move? So that's this whole wheel chart, defines what the system of insight looks like. Okay. So moving forward. So this chart explains what the self-service means, right? So as you may have heard this term, multi-speed IT or bimodal IT, is being quite popular these days. And what it says, basically, there are two kinds of users, personas. One is the traditional IT personas, and then the other one is more of a agile self-service type of personas, right? Such as business analyst, data scientist, right? And then for the traditional IT personas, they are the data engineers and IT professionals, right? They really have to focus on requirements, right? Compliance, regulation, budget, robust, being robust, right? Repetitive, right? So these are very it can take a very long time, right? And really, it's for enterprise focus, right? And then the other type, the self-service type of personas, they want to experiment and play, right, with data, and oftentimes they may think of like 1,000 ideas, but then maybe 100 will get try it. They probably try 100 of them in a POC, as a POC, right? And at the end, maybe 10 of them will really become a real project, and then eventually gets implemented in their production. So this is the fail fast type of agile style, right? And they often run hackathons, try to crowdsourcing the ideas, so they're very focused on the innovation part of it and the business function part of it, right? And so as the next generation of business intelligence, right, the system of insight needs to be able to support both types of personas, okay? So you will see the changes that we made in the new architecture this time based on this observation and the requirements. Okay. Next chart. Here I moved one more. We defined what are the 5 personas. The first one, as I said, is the knowledge worker, citizen analyst, right? And then we have data scientists and the traditional data engineers, database administrators, right? And we have also app developers. In the middle is the chief data officer, who is really in charge of the entire, defining the entire policies and rules for information governance. Okay, next chart. Okay, so this chart explains the analytics life cycles. Traditionally, we often just look at the development part of the life cycle of analytics, but then if you really look into the entire workflow and the life cycle, there are actually 2 parts of it. Right? So again, this is a little busy, but let me walk you through. We basically start with a business problem, right? And then we started looking or try to create new business opportunities, some sort of a new business imperative, right? It starts here, and then we will look around, whether it is data scientist or business analyst, right? They will look to see what are the data that is available, do the data mining to find what is the right data, right? Try to bring all the data up together. So you go to the data wrapping piece. Prepare the data, cleansing the data, right? Integrate different types of data, right? And then you try to develop the analytics models, right? You do the development, right? And then once you develop the new analytics model, you do the validation, right? Using the existing data sets, right? Of course, when you develop model, you separate the model into two sets. One is for developing the model. The other one, you save for later for validation, right? And then once the model is validated, then you go publish the model, right? And it gets deployed in your production, right? In your applications, right? And then of course you still test it before you put it into production. And then once in production, you will continuously generate data, right? So you will acquire new data from the improved app, right? And then so this cycle just goes on and on, right? So what the new architecture now does is really support the two life cycles, both for development and also for deployment. Okay. So the next chart is the Cloud Customer Architecture for Big Data and Analytics version 1, and this was published, I believe, in 2015. And as you see, this is quite straightforward, right? Hopefully you get a chance to review it. If not, it's okay. I will walk you through the new version V2 anyway. So this is the this is the old version, right? Now if you move forward to the next chart, so this is the version 2. It's a little bit busier than version 1, but I'll tell you what's the change, right? What are the changes that we made so far? So let's start from the left-hand side. This is the software as a service applications, right, on the public cloud domain. We added this because we think that this is one of the data sources, and also it can be a destination for applying insight back to, and also deploying the analytics back to. Okay, so we added this one in the public cloud environment, and then in the provider cloud network, we added from the top. We added the API management. This is mainly for data access, right? So for providing the access to data from the data repositories, right? So that the data scientists, business analysts, data engineers are able to, crawl through the data and then use the data to do the analytics as needed. Okay? So API management provides a secured way to access the data from the data repositories in the system of insight. And then we also added the software as a service SaaS applications in the provider cloud because we see more and more enterprises are migrating their enterprise applications to the provider cloud, from on-prem to cloud, the provider cloud, right, or private cloud. So we added this term. Now I will explain each of these components in more detail later, but I just wanted to first of all point out the changes that we made in version 2. Okay, and then you also noticed that we added the cognitive. We kind of sprinkle it, in 3 different places. One is the cognitive assisted data integration. And the other one is cognitive analytics discovery and exploration. And the third one is analytical actionable insights. Okay, so as you know, that artificial intelligence or cognitive technology has become very popular these days. So I believe, and we believe, cognitive can be embedded throughout the system of insight. So not only it can help semi-automate or automate some of the data preparation, data integration process, but also can be used in advanced analytics. Okay, so that's why we added cognitive there. Now on the top right-hand corner, we added the enterprise user. So we split enterprise user from the cloud user. Now if you go back to the previous chart, which is version 1, you see there's only one, cloud users on the top left corner. Okay, so there's a reason that we separated the two types of users. Even though from a persona point of view, the roles they play, they may be very similar, but we wanted to make sure that we capture the enterprise users who are behind the firewall, and then also include the system administrator type of roles in here. Okay, and then at the bottom, we added, in addition to information governance and the security, we also added the system management for overall cloud service management, right? So the details can be included in the cloud provider service level agreement, the SLAs. Okay, so this is what we have done for the changes that we have made in version 2. So this architecture really has many similarities to a data lake deployment in a data center, right? So if you walk from the left and also right too, because data can also go from the enterprise side. So there's enterprise network, right? So data is collected, whether it's structured or not structured doesn't really matter, and then it's staged and transformed by data integration. The streaming computing engines, depending on if it is real time or batched process, right? And then they are correlated and summarized as it's copied and moved through this processing chain, right? And then the data is made available to consumers through APIs, as I mentioned. So data can be accessed by different personas. And the cognitive technologies such as machine learning, deep learning, and natural language processing can be leveraged to semi-automate some of these processes. Okay. So at the bottom, you'll notice this information governance, security, and system management. They actually they across different networks, right? So they encompass each processing phase, right, to ensure the regulation and policies for all data are defined and enabled and reinforced across the system. So this is really important. That's why we put it at the bottom as the underpinning technologies to support the entire system of insight. Okay. And then as the insight is generated, and then they will get to be used by different applications, whether it will be pushed out all the way to the public cloud, or they will be consumed within the provider cloud, or they will be pushed into the enterprise network. So these actionable insights will be really applied to different applications across different domains to really help drive the business, whether it is reduce the cost, or it is improve increase the business growth, right, opportunities. So this is what we have for the architecture version 2. Okay, let me move forward. So in the next about 15 charts also, I'm going to explain each component. For some of them, I won't go to details because they're really self-explanatory, right? And then they were included in version 1 as well. So for example, data sources, right? So we all know we get data from all different sources, and they can be different types of data. They can be real time, they can be batched, right? It can be weather data, they can be third-party data. So this is what sits in the public cloud. Okay. Okay, let's move forward to the next one. So SaaS application on the public cloud. Just let me explain to you, because this is new. This is what we added recently. So what we included here is that we try to capture the apps that sit on the public cloud to engage the customers, or for connected cars, for smart homes, right, for those IoT applications. Yeah. So for engaging the customer, as a customer myself, I do online shopping, I do online banking, I do online booking, for travel, right? I buy tickets, movie tickets online, right? I do social media, I do Twitter, Facebook, right? So these are all the data that existed on the public cloud. So generated by these SaaS applications, right? So those are the data sources, the applications that are generating data from the cloud. Move forward is the next chart talks about the cloud user. As I explained earlier, we have 5 different personas, and these personas can come from a third party, right? Try to as a partner, right? Try to collaborate and jointly develop certain applications, or consume the data or the insight already, right? From the enterprise side or from the provider cloud. So this is what the different types of users are on the cloud. Move forward is the next one is the edge services, right? So we have that one in this version 1. These are the DNS, right, and CDN, the firewall, and load balancer for really providing the secure access, right, from the public cloud to the provider cloud, right, between the public cloud and the private cloud. So nothing changed. The next chart is the API management for data access. So this is what we added. So in this API management, the subcomponents are data access, data virtualization, data federation, and open APIs that are constantly generated by different types of personas and users. Yeah. Move to the next page. So this one is talks about streaming computing. The streaming was in version 1 as well. So in streaming analytics, in streaming computing we have streaming analytics. We have the complex event processing. So this one is really to combine data from different sources, right, to identify meaningful events or patterns, such as opportunities or threats and alerts, right, and then respond to them as quickly as possible. And then there's another subcomponent called data enrichment. So what it does here is to combine the in-motion data with historic data from the data lake for real-time or near real-time analytics. And the last one is the real-time ingestion. I probably should put the real-time ingestion up front as the first one, because really this talks about the real-time data ingestion to really capture the data as the data come in, right? The data comes in, and then they ingest and prepare structured and unstructured data. It doesn't really matter from the source systems in the real-time fashion. Okay. The next one talks about the data integration. So here the only change we made was that we add the cognitive assistant piece of it. My colleague Marshall Moore here, who is also here today, who joined us today, one of the co-authors for this paper, he actually developed a cognitive data ingestion capability really semi-automate the data ingestion process, the data classification process for us. The data integration, it's the traditional ETL or ELT, depending on what kind of process and schema you're using. And then it also includes the change data capture, to provide the data lineage, right? And the data replication as well. And then it also included documentation, interpretation, and classification. As I explained, really, it can streamline the capture and recognition and classification of business documents, right? And then it can extract important information from those documents for use by business users and in any kind of applications. And last one is the data quality analysis. Again, this is tied together with the information governance, right? We've worked with many customers. We've seen that many customers, they have created a data lake, right? But then they really don't understand, whether the data can be trusted or not, right? So in that case, you won't be able to trust the insight that are generated from those data. So this is the data quality is very important. So you want to make sure that you define the data quality rules, right, and then can be applied to data during the ingestion and transformation, and not only capture it, but also apply those rules, right, where you're ingesting the data and transforming the data. So that's for the data integration. Let's move to the next chart, which talks about the data repositories. Again, this was in the version 1 already. So these really encompass all kinds of data repositories, and then we can separate them into different zones, and then for landing zone or for archive and the purpose, and then a different zone for deep and exploratory analytics, such as we can create sandboxes for data scientists, right? And then we also could have data warehouse and data marts in there as well. And then and certain predictive analytics can be embedded in the data repositories to support operationalized analytics use cases. For example, you may know the next best action is actually a very common use case across different industries, and oftentimes they need a real-time response, right, to support interactive workloads. So just make sure that we get the performance. The predictive analytics can be embedded within the data repositories. Okay. So that's the data repository. And next, I believe, is the cognitive analytics discovery and exploration. So again, this is new. This is this doesn't exist. This was not in the version 1, but we added here to the to make sure that we not only support the production type of analytics, but also support the development for analytics. Right? As I mentioned before, we have these two distinct life cycle for analytics, and they actually flow into each other. So this is what we add. So we broke it into two different subcomponents. One is for data science, right? So really, it symbolizes a powerful new approach to make discoveries, right? So as you know, we can use all kinds of techniques such as data mining, statistics, machine learning, deep learning, and visualization, and all these techniques can be mined into this data science subcomponent, and then to really bring out the insight to us. Okay. And then the other one is the search and survey or shopping for data. So we specifically call this out because for the self-service type of personas, this is very important. Actually, this is a bottleneck for many of the analytics projects. People often use 70 to 85% of the time on searching for data, cleansing the data, get the data ready for the analytics project, right? So this is really important. And then in here, again, we can utilize the cognitive technologies to help us, to aid us, in this search and survey process. Okay. So moving forward, the next one is the cognitive actionable insights. Right. So this one was in version 1 already. And basically, this is all kinds of analytics that can be utilized to generate actionable insights. For example, the operation decision management, predictive analytics modeling, and service as an insight. For example, if service as insights is a new word for you, a new term for you. Basically, what it does is, it's a service capability that is provided, that can be provided by the cloud provider or a third party, right? That basically you can just provide your data, and then the scientists, their scientists will use their models, and do the work, and then provide your insight back. So this is what is called insight as a service, okay? And then once again, the cognitive can be used here, right? Not only can use the machine learning to automatically choose the right model for you, but also we can use the natural language processing to really make the interaction as much as human-like, okay? Let's move to the next one, which is the SaaS application on the provider network. Now, in contrast to the SaaS application in the private cloud, this set of SaaS applications on the private cloud looks more like the enterprise applications. Okay, so because the private provider cloud, private cloud, it's a secure environment. We have seen many of the enterprises started to migrate their enterprise applications to the private cloud. Okay, so this one is different from the SaaS applications on the public cloud, which is more for customer engagement and IoT. Okay, so this suite of applications, they are really focused on core business functions. Yeah. So what is the business customer experience, right? Really to develop new business models, and then to monitor the financial performance, right? Monitor the risk, really detect the fraud, and then really manage the compliance and the regulations, right? And then make sure that the IT operations are streamlined as capital expenditure and reduced while performance and features are improved by the cloud deployment. Yeah. So these are all the core functions for the business, and then that can be migrated to the private cloud from the enterprise side. Okay. Now move forward. Let's take a look at the transformation, and connectivity. So again, this is very critical. This provides the secure connections to enterprise systems with the ability to filter, aggregate, modify, or reformat the data as needed. Okay, so the data transformation is often required when data doesn't fit the enterprise applications. You got to change it. So the key subcomponents are the following, right? We have the enterprise security connectivity, we have the transformations for data, and then we have the enterprise data connectivity. Make sure that the analytic system, the system of insight, the components that we have the secured connection to the enterprise data. Okay. So move forward. We have we're now on the enterprise network. So the first one is the enterprise users. So as I explained earlier, we have separated the enterprise user from the general user, from the general cloud user. So they are behind firewall, and then they can also include the administrative type of users to manage and admin the system. Okay, next. So next is the enterprise applications. I have explained it a couple of slides ago. So these are the enterprise applications that some of the customers, some of the enterprise we have seen that are that are being moved to the provider cloud. Okay, so they perform the core business functions. Okay, next. So this is the enterprise data. Again, it was included in version 1, so I won't really explain in a lot more details. But if you look at it, it encompasses the data that are traditional to business operations and supporting the business transactions, right, for any of the enterprises. So here you have the reference data, you have master data, you have transactional data, application data, log data, and then you have the content, the enterprise content data, email, right? Those kind of documents, collaboration type of data as well, right? And you also have historic data. So notice that we really we didn't have the enterprise content data in the data lake, in the system of insight, because we really see the content, enterprise content as one of the data sources, right? So if you really need the data, you can get the data from the enterprise network. Okay. And then let's move to the next chart. The next chart talks about the enterprise user directory. It basically provides the storage for and the access to the user security information. Really identify the who's who, right? And to be able to provide the right level of access to different data sources, different applications. Okay, next one. Okay, now we are at the bottom. We start looking at the three very important underpinning technologies for the entire system. So the first one is the security. As we all know that in addition to data security, and of course data security is very important for big data and analytics, right? So we also have different levels of security that we have to be concerned about, right? Here, I just listed a few. For example, the infrastructure security, right, and the application security. You got to have secure DevOps. That environment has to be secured. even for test data, you got to have a secure environment to do that for the test data. And then we also have security monitoring and intelligence, to fight back the cyber crimes and stuff like that. Lastly, we have the security governance, right? So these are all very important to ensure the overall security, for the entire system. Okay, the next one is information governance. So the information management governance, these components really help you build the confidence in your data. As I mentioned briefly, right? Really, this will help you to maintain a trusted, accurate view of critical business data. Right? It can also provide a standardized approach to discovering your IT assets, to defining a common business language. So this is, the heart of the system of insight. People say, oh, I have a data lake, but without the proper governance, the data lake is, useless, right? You heard the data swamp. Pretty soon, you can't find what's in there, whether I can trust the data or not, what have changed to the data, who actually owns the data, right? So pretty soon you lost track, and then you won't be able to find the data that you need. So information governance is really the heart of the system of insight here, right? So it includes the data lifecycle management. As I mentioned before, we have this lifecycle. The data is flowing throughout the entire process. How do you manage that, right? And then when do you decide what data can be disposed, and then what needs to be archived, right? These are all, only sort of rules, right, to govern that entire process. And then we have master and entity data. So here the MDM, this is where MDM comes to a play as well, right? So that it really provides a single trusted view of critical business data. So that's very critical, right? And you have reference data, it's the log data, you can really see what happened to the data, right? Really help us understand the lineage as well, right? So we have data catalog. Again, the catalog is just like a library, and how the library functions. Without the catalog, you won't be able to find the books, the data that you want, right? So, and we have different data models, right? So the comprehensive data models containing data warehouse design models, business terminology models, and analysis templates, right, to accelerate the development of business intelligence applications. We also have the data quality rules, as I explained already. So the information governance is really key to the entire system of insight. Okay, the next chart. Okay, so this one is very busy, so I don't expect you to really read it, but we just included all the subcomponents here to give you a overall view of the system insight, on a cloud architecture diagram. This is what I meant. Sorry. Yeah. So this one is. I apologize, but you will, Tracy, right? The audience will get a PDF for this, so they can take a look at it later. But basically, I just collected all the subcomponents and put them all together on one page to show the overall view of the architecture.
Yes. There's in the attachments tab, there's a PDF of this presentation deck for anyone that would like to take a copy.
Okay. This is my last chart. I just wanted to give you an example to walk you through the process, how this scenario works, right? So we have a customer who is a bank, and a very innovative, very agile, a young bank, and they like to become a cognitive bank, right? So what they wanted to do is to really provide a personalized interaction with the customer, with the cognitive technology. So what we did for them is we really built this, cognitive kind of engagement, empowered with the customer insight. So we have these numbers on the chart. So I'll just walk you through the runtime flow. So number one is the on the public cloud side, you see the customer profile data, including the demographic preferences, and then the production services, historic behavior, and much more. These are the data, the profile data for the customer, and also the interaction data from the enterprise database, on the right-hand side that are also collected in batch in real time. So the social media data such as Twitter and Facebook also collected as well, right? And number 2 and 3, these are related to data integration. So different types of data are integrated and transferred using Spark, right? So they actually use Spark as the runtime engine. And then number 4 is the transform data, which is combination of structured customer data from enterprise data sources and interactive data that can be structured or unstructured, right? And they are stored in a data repository. So cache data for a real-time API requests are stored in another data repository. So they actually use 2 different types of data repositories here. And then number 5 is, perform a rule-based. So the analytics right now is the phase 1 of the project. So the analytics is actually pretty simple. They use the rule-based analytics to analyze personal client experience, and either is at a branch or using a mobile application, right? So and then present the changes to the branch personnel or mobile application where appropriate to improve the client experience in real time. And then number 6 is in the sort of a back office, more of an R&D environment. The data scientists, and they'll use the data, right, to discover and explore the patterns, and then they may, develop new analytics data model, and then really, hopefully to use these new models to further enhance the customer experience. And then number 7 is the APIs, right? So it can be on the top and also on the right-hand side. Really make sure that real-time requests are really performed, from the audit branches. The data can be captured and accessed from all the branches in real time. And then number 8 is the so they actually use a cloud marketing platform. So that's really the platform that integrates all the interactions, right? And then they even though they have different channels and everything, right? But they use the cloud marketing platform as the platform, right? To integrate all the insights, right? And then the personalized insight developed from those data are fed back to the cloud marketing platform to be able to provide really the personalized experience either through the mobile application or at a branch. Okay. And then number 9 is the cognitive API. Here we meant by the natural language processing, right, powered by the natural language processing, is used for Q&A, almost like a chatbot, right, for credit card marketing agents. So this is the solution that we built for the client, right? And we are still in phase 1, So, this is almost like a minimum viable product that we put together for them. So the next phase, we will further expand capabilities, putting machine learning and enhance the analytics using the predictive analytics, right? So there's a lot more that we can do for this client. But this is one of the scenarios that we like to share with you. And notice this is actually heterogeneous. Not only is it a hybrid, but it's also heterogeneous because they use our IBM products. They also use Microsoft. They use open source. So this is a very interesting scenario use case that I'd like to point you to. With that, Tracy, I'd like to conclude my talk.
Great. Thank you, Christine. I'm just going to pull up the next slide. Here. Great job. I know we have a few minutes and just one question that came in, so I think we have just enough time. I wanted to make sure to invite everyone again quickly to part 2 of our BDA webinar series this week. You're welcome to join us on Friday the 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern. As the majority of big data and analytics use cases are on hybrid cloud architecture, we're going to discuss exactly what hybrid cloud computing is, why hybrid cloud computing is important in the context of big data and analytics, and implementation considerations unique to hybrid infrastructure. And you can sign up on our site, cloud-council.org/events. And you're welcome to become a member and contribute to future papers if this is of interest to you. We have some links here. Membership is free. And we've pulled out some papers on this next slide, other resources that we've published that are free and openly available to you. So with the last couple of minutes, I do have a question. And as Christine mentioned, Marcio Mora from IBM was also able to join us. So between Christine and Marcio, the question that came in is, how can we use the reference architecture on a new project? So Christine or Marcio, feel free to share a little bit of your thoughts there.
Yeah, so so I'll start first. Marcio can chime in later. So this one is a very good question, right? So this customer architecture is, to me, it's actually at a very high level, right, logic level. So, depending on what the project you have, you can use this as a reference, right, to think of different components that you have in your project and see, if it really, makes sense to say, okay, which component to help you to decide which component will be put on the cloud, which will be over on the enterprise network, or actually which is on the public cloud. So that will kind of just help you guide you to provide some of these insight. But to me, really, when you go design it and put together an architecture, not only you have to think about the security, right, but also the most important thing you have to think about is the data gravity, where your data is. So that is where Marcio will talk in a lot more detail next time in the next webinar on Friday. Okay, so this is the architecture, what it looks like. But then when it comes to deployment, oftentimes it's a hybrid cloud scenario, right? What are the considerations, right? So Marcio will be talking about that in the next webinar. Marcio, anything to add?
Yeah, and the other thing that I think it's important when you're using the reference architecture, based on what Christine just described, the data gravity, it is also good for you to look at the different components and also think about a data topology. So based on the data gravity, where you want to have your application running, where you want to engage with your clients. So based on that, you're going to choose the different components of the reference architecture and decide where is the best place to store the data, where is the best place to process the data, and where it's going to be your application, where it's going to be running.
Great, thank you. Thank you both. And thank you for, oh, I'm sorry, Christine.
There's another question. Identity management is now often a public cloud function. Are you including IDM as a SaaS application in the public cloud? I'd like to take you back to page number 30 when I talked about the security, because that one is not just public cloud. It actually crossed all different cloud environments. So I put it down there in the, as one of the security subcomponents. So the number 2, if you look at it, number 2 subcomponent is identity and access management. So this actually cross all environments, including public cloud.
Perfect.
Yeah, usually it's associated with the authentication. So basically, it's going to have your LDAP out there trying to identify or where the users, but it can be deployed across all the environments.
Thank you. And that's it. We will wrap up now. Thank you so much, Christine, Marcio, and everyone that was able to join us today. If you could make it on Friday, we'd love to have you, and visit our site as well to read the papers. Everyone have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Tracy, for having us.